Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Someone You Love with Joseph Antonio. A quick heads up, Someone You Love is available both in audio and video. If you're interested in watching the full conversation with visuals, you may do so at youtube.com/@Boedro. That is BOEJRO. For my very first episode, I am thrilled to introduce my first guest, and that is Susanna Turner. Susanna, or Susy, is a photographer, actor, and artist based here in Chicago. She is the founder of Gray Cell Photography, a beautiful photojournalistic company that highlights diverse faces and stories. Through the lens of Gray Cell Photography, Susy captures more than just faces. She is capturing the rich, unfolding narratives that live in every street and every city. As a third culture kid who's lived in over 6 countries, Susy brings a rich global perspective to her art and storytelling. I am so blessed to have Susy on the podcast today. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
When I started, I had really no experience because I'd been taking like family vacation shots,
Sure.
kind of things like my mom's
Sure.
like, let's just have some photography.
Sure.
But then I got a camera and then I was just like out on the street, like 4 or 5 hours after work, shooting, found a great group of photographers, hooked up with them, kept learning. And then next thing you know, I was like, oh, that's what I do. I'm a street photographer.
Yeah.
And then I got business cards and that's how it escalated, but I think it's the beginning of just doing it.
Right.
And then you will learn as you go.
Yeah.
There's no like getting ready.
Right.
That's not a thing.
Well, it's just you're just like spending all of this time trying to like prepare yourself for like a perfect start.
Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from?
I think that's a great question, actually. I think people are, and including myself, like really anxious and nervous of like doing it right or like following in other people's footsteps, but also wanting to branch out on their own.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a combination of, upbringing, family history, and your own self-worth. But I think once even like micro things, they can have such an impact as an artist.
Sure.
Like if you, for photography, for example, if I edit 1 photo a day, I'm like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And it's just 1 photo.
Yeah.
And some days I edit a whole album.
Sure.
And it's the pacing. You got to find your own rhythm. And I don't like the whole like trust yourself, because I think that's an ongoing process for people, and for me specifically. Yeah.
That's interesting. And you do street photography.
So I do street photography, heading more into photojournalism, documentary work. So I'm a huge proponent of like, if you want to start photography, you just got to get on the street.
Cool.
Just like go interview people, bump into people, compliment people. Like for instance, you have a really nice belt on today. If you were on the street, I would be like, can I capture your belt?
Sure.
And then we would dive into a talk about the history of the belt. You mentioned you wear it a lot.
Yeah.
And then it would extend into something, not that I'm like pressuring it to, but if it naturally goes there, it could go in all different stories. And then people tend to be very open for me to photograph them.
Yeah.
And it's the stories I've learned from people just with a little comment is, I carry that in my heart, because that's very special.
Yeah. You have some incredible photos.
Thank you.
Your photos are truly so beautiful. And I think what's so beautiful about the photos you take are they are like the people that you have in your photos, specifically your street photography, is like they're people that are like characters in like this way of like they're just this story that is like kind of like exuding from this photo of like these colors or these hats or like these tattoos. Like it's just, I feel like the way that you tell the story with a photo is so potent, and I think it's because you're often looking for the story. Do you know what I mean? Of like, what's the story behind the belt?
Yeah.
Right. It's not just like, I like the belt, let me take a photo of it.
No, it's a huge part of photography, specifically photojournalism, is how you approach the subject. Can you have access to the subject? So for example, like we're both Latino.
Yes.
Right. So we're brown.
Yes.
So we have different access than someone who's white.
Sure.
So someone who's white could have an access that we're never going to get.
Yeah.
But we're going to have access that they're never going to
Sure.
get. So a lot of it is that.
Interesting.
But it's also just giving the space between that person enough time to breathe and like reading their energy. Like there are times when I will talk to someone for like a good 20 minutes and then whip out the camera because their guards are down. And it's only when their guards are down that you can really get that. You can get something.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's nothing like going home, plugging in the camera, opening up Lightroom, and then being like, can I cuss? Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
Being like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That is insane. And like zooming in, zooming out, seeing the world around it. Because a lot of the time, some of the shots, I'm only focused on one part and the unconsciousness takes care of the rest of it. And so I get the opportunity to like zoom in and zoom out.
It's really cool.
Yeah, and take my time looking at that shot. I mean, it's like, it's like oxygen.
Wow, that's really, really, that's beautiful. What do you look for in street photography when you're taking photos in street photography? Like,
yes, that was the question. It depends on where I'm at, what city. So New York, I was in New York last summer. I did a 6-week program at the Barrow Group.
Yes.
One of the best experiences of my life.
Yeah.
I can't tell you. I was commuting in and out of Providence. And so when I wasn't in class, I brought my camera and I would just hit the street for like 4 hours to wait for the Amtrak to go back to Providence. It was insane.
Whoa.
But in New York, the energy is so alive that I only go with intuition. I'm like, I'm going to go find something. I'm always like, what does the street want to tell me today?
Ooh.
And that's like, when I go with that mentality, what I find is...
That's hot.
Yeah, because it's like, it's not something like I can't imagine it. It's just like there. And I'm like, I'm going to go in it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the shot. So... New York is very different because every single block, every corner, every alley, everything, you can get a shot if you're really looking.
Sure.
When it comes to here in Chicago, I have to go find the spots.
Oh, interesting.
So if I go downtown, I'll say like, I'm going to do Mag Mile. I'm just going to walk Mag Mile and shoot that, you know? But then I go with intuition still. I always go intuition because the times when I'm like, I'm going to take a right, not a left. Don't question it because there's a reason why. And when that happens and you bump into the person you bump into, or you know, I mean, there have been times where I've just been like, thank you, higher power, because I would have taken the left, you know, out of the ego, and then I would have missed the shot. Or maybe I would have found something, but it's the intuition because that's very quiet. It's very subtle. Yeah. So that's what I look for mostly.
That's really cool. And when you're like following that intuition, you're again being present, right? You're being present with what you're seeing, what's in the moment, and like the way that you capture these like scenes. Like one of my favorites of yours is this.
Did you look at my work?
Of course I did. Hello. One of my favorites of yours, I believe it was in New York. It's the chicken wings.
Interesting.
It was like most of the time you're taking photos of like these people, these honestly, again, like these beautiful humans that are just like so colorful and like just so incredibly like, just like so unique. And also a big compliment to like the people that you, not the people you choose, but the people you allow yourself to be open to. Like there are a lot of faces that would aren't normally seen, like are normally invisible when you're walking around on stage or around the street. Yes,
I love that you said that.
Yeah,
that means a lot to me because then I know I'm doing something right. You are shedding a light on these people.
You are. Yeah, and like So anyway, but the chicken wings.
The chicken wings
is so interesting. Oh, was it chicken? Yeah, it was like a box, right? It
was
like,
that was in Providence. Yeah.
Okay, Providence.
It was like chicken wings, and then there was like a box of cigarettes.
Yeah.
I call that one leftovers.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You do. I call it leftovers because there was something about like I was up there and I was shooting architecture, and then I looked down and I was just like, what's really interesting about that shot is that it forces the person, and this is all unconscious. It wasn't me, but it forces the viewer to fill in the gaps. So you know someone was there eating those chicken wings and honestly devouring those chicken wings because there's like nothing left on the bone. They're just like all
They're all
stripped.
Yes.
Dry.
Like it was just like I was like, this person had a feast.
Yeah.
And then they probably had a cigarette,
Yeah.
and then they thought, I'm just gonna leave it here.
Yeah.
So there's a whole story that the viewer, they get to go in and create whatever they want.
Sure.
And again, in the moment, I was just like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But when I get home, then I'm seeing it as
Cool.
as you're seeing it.
Sure.
You know.
I want to talk a little bit about TCK, Third Culture Kid, which is this kind of like identifier that you use to describe your like your background in your childhood. If you didn't know, Susy is from 6 different countries.
Yes.
Over 7. Sometimes you say over 7, sometimes you say 6.
Yeah, I think it is 6. I say over 7 just because I like to add all the places that I've visited.
Sure.
So I like, but it's
Okay.
6. It's 6.
Okay, 6.
It's 6.
Get ready, okay?
Yeah.
It's Colombia,
Mm-hmm.
the United States,
Yep.
India,
Mm-hmm.
Pakistan, Argentina, and
You're almost there.
Venezuela.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So this idea of like third culture kid, which is kind of this term coined by Ruth Van Recken, who was spent time in Nigeria and was basically, it's like a terminology, correct me, and you feel free to add whatever you need, term for a person who has spent a portion of their childhood with a living in a place that's different than their parents' passport.
Mm-hmm. And theirs.
Yes, and theirs, exactly. So you've spent a lot of time, talked a lot about spending time in different countries and kind of how that's on Hannah Rumsey's podcast. You talked a little bit about like what it means to like have friends in different countries and like, you know, all that stuff. And I'm just curious, like, how that sort of the like search for identity has found its way through your art, photography, film, acting. Like, how has that search for belonging and community like found its way into what you do today?
Whoa, that's a great question. I think when I first started any type of art form, it was acrylic painting. So I did a lot of like canvas paintings. So I went to Columbia College Chicago for fine arts. So through the painting, I explored a lot of like unconsciousness that had happened in all these places that I lived. In the places that I lived, especially in Pakistan, there were some huge like world events that happened that I was a part of. That was incredibly rough, and to the point where it's really hard to express what those are like, because I don't think it's so surreal that I don't think people could fully grasp what those were. But once I started painting, I then thought I want something that's more community based, because it's great to process your own stuff through painting, but it's where are we going with this, you know? Then I got into acting, and with acting, I studied at Green Church Studio, Meisner approach. There was something about repetition and being in collaboration with somebody and being able to be present. And I think growing up internationally as a TCK, you are essentially kind of forced into these cultures and people that you, of course, you would never, you know, you're a kid, it's not like you're like, I'm going to go to Nepal now. It's like, no, your family's just there. So I've had an extensive amount of opportunities to talk to people from all different backgrounds, all different hierarchies. What I mean by that is when I lived in India, it was like I spent time with like Bollywood actors, parents, in like mansions. And then I would go to the other side and I would spend time with like, we had a cook and the cook's family lived in the slums, and then we would spend time with them. So these extreme circumstances, when it comes to repetition and acting, it's like, oh, you're meeting people where they're at. That's what you're doing. And then you're letting the people, you know, kind of guide you through that. And then you're getting an insight into their life. When I first started acting, it was a lot of like, let me tell you about my life. Let me tell you who I am, you know? And then you learn slowly, or I learned very, very slowly, that it's just about meeting them where they're at. That's the goal, you know? And then with photography, it was very similar. It was like, again, the approaches of people, when I approach people, it's a lot of calmness, ease, and then meeting them where they're at and then having the conversation. And sometimes if they're open to get deep and personal, I'll go there. I'm more than happy to.
Yeah.
And if they're not, I won't.
Yeah.
But in terms of my identity, it's also more complicated because I'm adopted.
Yes.
So that adds another level of complexity. But I really have been learning to recognize that I'm from all of these countries. I'm from all these backgrounds and cultures. And the more I can meet people where they're at, the more it will say about who I am.
Sure.
Because that way I'm not navigating the ship.
Yeah.
We're navigating the ship.
That's really beautiful.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really, really beautiful. Yeah, that's wonderful. I think it's honestly, like, looking into the things that you've done and kind of the sort of like artistic history that you have, I think what is really beautiful about the work that I've seen you do is it comes from a perspective that is much more global than like the average person that I've ever interacted with. The people in my life, the people in my community, we have very individual perspectives, and there's space for both of those, obviously.
Yes.
But I think we are continuing to move closer and closer to the individual of like, how am I feeling? What is this making me feel like? And those things are important.
Yes.
And we're losing that sense of community of like, what does it feel like to be in a room full of people that you love and that you know, or that you don't know, and you're excited to like learn more about? Like, it's a really hard thing for a lot of people. You've done a inshallah we will move to Newton. One woman solo performance piece that you've done, the Dunamis Emerging Professional, right?
So impressed right now.
Yeah,
your research. Yes,
of course. I had to. I wanted to. I want to learn a little bit more about what that piece kind of was for you artistically, and if you have any sort of advice for maybe individuals who have gone through such a grand moment in their life and want to turn it into a sort of solo autobiographical performance.
So Inshallah Will Move to Newton was with the Dunamis Emerging Artist Program. Huge shout out to Dunamis. I gotta plug them in.
Here it is.
They're from Boston. They're super dope. The 15 minutes that I workshop was basically, I lived in Pakistan and Islamabad, and we went through a pretty huge event where there was essentially a terrorist attack at the Marriott Hotel, which was 5 minutes from my house. So we felt, the windows were shaking, and my mom was an international school principal for the American school there. And so when it happened, she had to jump into like crisis mode and call the teachers and all the other faculty and parents and students and make sure everyone was safe. It was so big that it like, basically there was like a huge crater that had happened. I mean, it was incredibly scary. So within that time, we were told by the United Nations, all U.S. citizens have to leave Pakistan. And we'd been there for 4 years. We loved Islamabad. It's a beautiful country, Pakistan. Very underrated. I just want to say the Margala Mountains are gorgeous. Pakistan's beautiful. And I could talk about it forever. And then we ended up going back to Newton, Massachusetts, where my mom's from. My adopted mom, but my mom. And she grew up there her whole life. She went to school there. And when we moved back, it was 6 months of adjusting to a public school, a public high school. So we went from like a private school of like, I think it was about 150 students, K through 12. So you can only imagine, like one class was like 10 students. Like I had 3 girls in my class. I was like, what's happening? Yes. I was like, what? And then we ended up going to Newton, Massachusetts. And to be honest, that was the biggest cultural shock. Out of all the places I lived was moving to Newton, Massachusetts. And it was mainly because the public school, we used to visit there in the summers. And so my mom would refer to it as home. And I would always tell her, Mom, that's not home. Home is Pakistan. That's what I know. So it was the 15 minutes workshop, the play consists of basically me talking about the experience I had in Pakistan, how much I love that country, the bombing that happened, and then fleeing to Newton, Massachusetts, and having to adapt with my sister and my mom in this little house, and how our relationships kind of fell apart because it was an incredibly traumatic experience. You know, my mom was unemployed. I've never seen my mom unemployed. Very depressed. My sister, she did everything she could to graduate. I struggled a lot with like alcohol and drugs and sex, and just like I was doing everything I could to numb. And so through that whole experience, what's so beautiful is that it took a long time to write it, but because of the Dunamis program, we have a mentor and they guide you through that process. And so the more I started just writing and getting it, the more I just was like, I could do this on my feet. Like I can perform this. And there's nothing like performing something that's your story to a group of people, and then being able to see the reactions that they're having, that you've been having your entire life with it. So if I was to tell someone, if they were like, I'm thinking about doing this part of my life, I would just say, like, write as much as you can, let it all out. Even if you want to speak into a microphone, speak into the microphone, let it all out, and then just sit on it for like a month. Just go do something else. Come back to it, read it again, do it again. And then follow your own journey and what you want to do. If you want to paint, if you want to do something else. But the writing is the trick for me.
So this podcast was born out of this idea of getting an opportunity to sit down with artists that I admire, that I really think are just like, honestly, not only because I've seen a little bit of your work as I was doing some research, but that I didn't, when I first met you, and even when we got coffee, I hadn't seen any of your work at that time. And yet there was something that I still really admired about the way that you, like, I don't know what it is, like the way that you were, just the presence that you have and the curiosity and the kindness that you bring is like, was really so potent. And so this podcast idea kind of came around because I wanted to sit down with artists, but I also wanted to put some love out in the world, which I think is necessary.
Yeah, definitely right now
it's definitely necessary. So if you're comfortable, I would love to hear a little bit about someone you love. You put I had a little Google form.
Yes.
And you know me, I always have everything planned.
The prep
it all. You wrote down your mother.
I did.
I'd love to hear a little bit about her.
Yeah. I'm actually wearing her necklace today, which is really sweet. Yeah. It's in the back. It's Guatemala, because that's where she used to live too. One of the countries. She lived in more countries than we did.
Sure.
So my mom, her Connie Turner, international school principal. She, what can I say about her? She was an elementary and education's principal, so she loved kids. I always tell people that she's the female Fred Rogers. I mean, she worked on Sesame Street.
Sure.
She worked on Reading Rainbow.
Whoa.
So she was in it.
Whoa.
She was a huge believer of the impact of film and TV when it comes to education purposes. So like PBS was like her Bible.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
And so she adopted me from Colombia, Bogota, when I was like 21 months. She never got married. So she was always like, I forgot to get married, but I got the kids. So I was just like, yes.
I love that. That's incredible.
And this is in the 90s. So she was doing it before the internet. I mean, she was like in it.
Sure.
And she passed away 5 years ago, unexpectedly. She was living in Brazil at the time, and she had like one final adventure on the Amazon River. And then that was it for her. But she lived her life the way she wanted to. So she wanted to work in these international schools. She wanted to help kids with especially reading. Reading was really important to her. And when she wasn't a principal, she was my mom and she was my principal. So that, sure. There was that too. So so when I would end up in the office, I'd be like, what are we doing for lunch?
Yeah, exactly. I love it. You get the call and you're like, everyone's like, ooh.
And I was like, I'm going to go see my mom. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, it's going to be great. Yeah, and she would embrace me. I was like, hey, mom.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, she I just really admired how much she could handle crisis management, and how much she would give back. That's a big one. She always had like an angel tree project going on in every school. So it's for the other schools around the American school where we were. They just didn't have as many resources or support. So my mom would be in charge of the angel tree project, which is you buy a gift for one of the students in the other school, the family. When we had an earthquake in Pakistan that happened that we were a part of. She worked with UNICEF, and so she was. We were making bags in the gym, and she was in charge of that. With the Marriott, it was the same thing. With the tsunami in Sri Lanka, same thing. She was actively trying to give to somebody else. So that's what she always said. Like, what life is to help others, always. And I'm really learning that message. Like, I'm really understanding what she means. And and she loved Carole King.
Love it.
She loved Tapestry. It's one of her favorite albums. I mean, I could go on and on about her, but she's an incredibly powerful woman warrior, and I do think I carry that with me from her.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Thanks.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think it's just I feel that energy on you. Do you know what I mean? I think it's apparent in the way that you, again, this like the way that you maneuver the world is just it's beautiful. It's uncommon.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, it's uncommon.
A lot of credit goes to her. A lot of credit goes to her. And also my biological mother. So I found my biological mother, Nubia, and I met her, we spoke, and she'd been through a tremendous ordeal and had to give me up for adoption. But I've learned from her also the resilience that she had and has at this time. And so it's really cool to be kind of birthed into this world with two women warriors who are just like badass and so empathetic, so compassionate, and being able to live the lives that they want to live. I think that is rare.
Yeah. Okay, before we go,
yes,
I have a gift for you.
Oh my God. Is it an iPad?
Oh my gosh. Surprise.
Could you imagine?
It's not an iPad, it's my iPad.
Oh.
You could have mine. Okay. So, on the Someone You Love podcast, my goal is to sit down with artists I admire, and also it's to sort of highlight this like impact that artists have on our lives, in our society, in our community. So I have asked one of your loved ones to write you a note. I asked them why they loved you and why they admired you.
Okay.
And so this is a love letter from Hannah Rumsey. And it says, where do I begin? Susy is so funny, fierce, and talented. I remember the first time I realized we were friends. We were in the closet, aka backstage, at the Green Shirt Studio during an acting class, waiting for our scene. And before I knew it, we were talking about our lives. Talking with her was so seamless and easy. It always felt like I could be completely myself around her, including my really weird, really silly self. If I do a silly dance, she laughs and joins right in. I love being silly and laughing with her, and I also love sitting calmly and talking about serious topics with her. The other day we talked about death for an hour.
Yeah.
That's not always an easy topic to dive into, but without hesitation, she dove right in. She's also an absolute inspiration. She goes after what she wants, works so incredibly hard, and never gives up. She is an amazing friend. Hannah.
Whoa. That's really sweet. I'm honestly lost for words.
Yeah.
Because I was not expecting that. I thought you were going to give me like a flower. I was just like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But that is hitting all the ribs, you know? And I love that you're doing that.
I believe that the people who describe you the best are the people that you love.
Yeah.
I have one of these for you.
Wow.
That you can take with you.
Oh my God.
You can keep it. There it is.
Oh, this is so sweet.
Well, thank you, Susie.
Thank you,
It's been
Joseph.
such a pleasure.
This has been amazing.
It's been wonderful. And that's all I got for you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to the first episode of Someone You Love. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider leaving a review, sharing it with a friend, or following the show for more conversations like this. Until next time, take care, and don't forget to tell someone you love them. Press the button. We did!
You did your first one!
Thank you, Susie.
You did so well.
Oh, thank you.
And honestly,
Woo!
seamlessly.
Seamlessly?
Seamlessly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
You were like, that was so natural. I thought you did really well.
thank you.
For that to be your first one,
Thanks.
I mean, that's like, this is genius.
Thank you.
This is like,
It came to me in a dream to be so broke.
well, I don't doubt it because this is an incredible idea.